Hello, hello, hello. All right. Welcome to the Monster Soup Podcast, a place for misfits, cryptids, and these kids. You are joined with your host, David Spencer. It's silly fun time. My dog showed up and decided to shake right when it started. Perfect time. And then this is my host, the Thriller and Vanilla. This is Brian McKinney joining me.
Congratulations on the first episode.
Thank you. All right. So how I wanted to do this is kind of an introduction podcast. It's to get you guys to know what we're going to kind of do, where we're coming from. A lot of what I do on this whole thing is just react to these exciting, fun things. And I think they're very exciting, very fun to kind of hear people's weird stories. So really where I want to start it is how I got started and, how me and Brian basically came together and thought these things were very cool. You know, me and Brian hang out all the time and we do a lot of fun stuff together. So Brian has always been into this. And so from the first time I met him, he was just like, oh yeah, Bigfoot, Finding Bigfoot is my favorite show. He was so stoked when we met Bobo at like a bar somewhere random, and he was just like this. He's like, oh, I met Bobo this weekend, and I was like, just like, yeah, like I've been into like UFOs and weird stories my whole life. I think that stuff's like really, really cool, but like I kind of just base leveled it. It's just like, yeah, I like that stuff. I'll talk about this stuff for hours, but I didn't have any kind of in for like going and meeting people and talking to people about these weird things. But then I listened to like this 7-part series on like cryptid, or specifically about Bigfoot, and then I was just like, I was like, Brian, I think I believe, I think I'm on board. And I always think of it as like it's like low level is the wrong word, but like it's exciting to be part of something that like it doesn't matter if it's real or not. It's just about the fun of the mystery and all those things, like the joy that I get from like experiencing all these things. So Brian, you want to introduce yourself a little bit on things that you love?
Well, first of all, I just want to say after all those years, I finally felt vindicated when you climbed on board. And I was like, all right, we won another one over,
Yeah. I literally I remember just being like, hey, Brian, come here. I think I'm on board. So Bigfoot thing.
But yeah, I've always been into weird stuff. I basically got into Bigfoot originally when I was a kid. I saw on the $6 Million Man, there was an episode where Andre the Giant played Bigfoot, and the episode came out in like 1976. And so I would have been like 2 at the time. So my guess is I saw it like on reruns a couple years later, although I do have memories from pretty early in my childhood. So maybe my parents were watching it and I saw it, and that's what stuck out for me. But, my whole thought process was like, you mean to tell me that there's like this giant monster that lives out in the woods and people are just kind of like casually like, yeah, it's out there. It's kind of scary. We're not sure what it is, but it's out there and like nobody really cares. That always just kind of stuck with me as being like, what is going on with this? And as time went by, it was just kind of like always kind of in the background. It was never like, something that I sought out or really did much, but as TV shows around or you see like unsolved mysteries and, just weird stuff like that. You'd see Bigfoot episodes, every now and again. But for years, I found out that they had done like the Ohio Bigfoot conference, but had no idea how to get tickets for it or how to go or who to, I didn't have anybody to go with because most people laughed at me when I was like, I want to check out this Bigfoot thing, and, was totally into the Finding Bigfoot show and, some of the other ones, but specifically that one, that was always, my favorite. And then, for a couple of years, you and I talked about, hey, we should try to figure out how to go down to this thing down at Salt Forge State Park at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. And we couldn't get tickets. They sell out like 5 minutes every year. But one year, I think must have been 2022, 3 years ago.
Yeah, because we're in our 3rd year, right? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we were.
This year was our 3rd year.
And we're like, well, it's like an all-day, flea market and things. We wouldn't have tickets to the speakers, but it says it's open to families and anybody. So like, let's just go down there and check it out.
Worst case scenario, it was going to be like a guide trip. We were like, it'll be whatever. I was like, I'm into this, you're into this. Let's just like go down and experience like whatever. I had a hope for what it was going to be, and that hope turned into everything I wanted it to be more. Like, because I'll get there, but like, so the first 3 went I'll circle to why it was everything. But we went to this hotel that was like off the beaten path, and we were there. We're like, let's go grab a drink real quick before
because we couldn't book a room because it was already it was sold out.
Yeah, it was totally full. So
we able to get a hotel in town and we'll go check it out.
Yeah, we were at a Red Roof, and then so we got one beer at the bar that was there, and the lady, the bartender, was like, "Oh, what are you guys here for?" And we're like, "Well, this is about to laugh at us," and we're just like, "Well, we're here for the Bigfoot thing," and she goes, "Oh, honey, let me tell you something." She had like 12 stories. We were like, okay, we're with our people. Like, she was telling us about stories of her old patrons and like how they had like all these like cool Bigfoot stories and like anything. And then I was like, oh, we're probably gonna try to Uber there and Uber back. She goes, oh, honey, there ain't no Ubers here. We're like, okay. So she gave us like a list of taxis. So I was like, you know what? I won't drink. Like, it's fine. We'll drive there and I'll drive back. It's fine because we're a little in the middle of nowhere. So we drove to the Salt Fork thing. And then we're sitting at the bar, we're getting lunch, or at this point it was lunch. And I look out to the smoking area. I was like, that's where the stories are at. And then we sat there for what, like maybe 45 minminutes, I think. Yeah,
because we were like, we don't want to just like walk up to random strangers and because we're not sure if everybody's there for this or kind of we're so unclear of what was going on.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden we overheard like, oh, they're like, I was sitting on the ridge and all of a sudden I saw the eyes and we're like, excuse me, can we join you real quick?
Let's go.
Then, when the magic, they were like, absolutely. And I can't tell you, these people, it was like meat on the bone. They were like, everybody's heard my stories before. They were so excited to like dump them on this new fresh meat that was there. They're like, oh my gosh. And then like more people would just keep coming by. This is why it became like the dream scenario. Cause like really, when you go to these things, you open the floodgates for talking weird stuff. You want everybody there to kind of like talk to you about their weird thing. It's like, sure, 365 days of the year, we're talking about, interest rates and paychecks and bills and what we have to do, but this is our safe space to be like, let's talk about the weirdest thing you've ever heard. And not only is it celebrated, it's built on. And so it was just like people coming by and it'd be like, oh, you guys talk about Bigfoot? And like, yeah. They're like, oh, can I tell you my story? And they just get into it, and then you get just like old dudes with like long cigarettes just be like, yeah, it was big in 1984. I saw it, and I was like, this is the best. And there was like a campfire, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything. So we've been going there like every year since then. So like this is our third year we went this year. And then we've even like met other people at different ones. We're trying to like span out, but what I get out of it is it's the joy of the mystery. I get excited about hearing people's stories, regardless. I remember my wife doesn't believe in any of this at all, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but she's just like, do you believe these people's stories? And I go, and I'm just like, I have no reason not to. I mean, like, what's the level of, what are we going to do? You yes and them on their story. I go, no way, tell me about more of that. Or you're going to go like, are you sure it was that? No, you yes and them. They tell you the crazy story, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not. You just kind of like get excited about it, and then you can learn more and more.
What you will, but there's a lot of people from all walks of life who have nothing to gain by being there and telling their crazy story. And I tend to, most of them believe because, I'm like, why would you make that up?
Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun to be part of this little like community that like I didn't even know existed until like maybe like three. I mean, obviously like I knew people did it, but like in this like little tight, I mean, we ran into people that we've seen at other things, like in different events for like, oh, hey, what's up? There was like Chainsaw Carver that we've seen at a couple things. And it's super fun. So that year was the year that I would basically buckle down and I started asking people like these like kind of core questions. And my favorite things to do would just be like, hey, what do you think it is? And everybody had like a different theory. And so I'd be like, oh, what is it? Some people were like, they're tribes people, they're an ancient race. Some people even go like interdimensional, or, it's so all over the place. And then, me and Brian have our own theories about what it might be. Unproven, obviously.
And we're coming from the fact that we have no stories, no experiences. We've never been out squatching before or anything. It's like we're just super into it and have nothing to contribute other than please tell us your stories. Like this,
Yeah.
your story is insane, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun. And they're just like meeting people and talking about this stuff. I mean, there's like campfire talks and stuff like that. But it's always come down to the joy of the mystery for me of just like, what is this thing? You know, when it comes to UFOs, which I really, really love, you know, Bigfoot, obviously, Mothman's always been my jam. Skinwalkers are absolutely my jam, and I don't understand them, but I think they're so cool. Maybe cool is the wrong word. If you talk to like the right indigenous person, they'll be like, not cool, not cool at all.
Not cool at all.
I'm like, but like cool dog person, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's just reacting to these things in like a fun way is very exciting. And then was my favorite question to ask them was like, you know, what do you think happens when they disappear? Like when they're in your sight and all of a sudden they're gone. And every single person was just like, I thought this happened. I thought this happened. Like some people were like, I think they crawl on their fingers. I think they like, you know, go into a portal. I think they, I don't know. It was just like all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, you know, and it was just so crazy that everybody.
Yeah. And that was what was kind of new for me, because I'm thinking, oh, they just, you know, walked away, you know. You know, I didn't realize that there was so many other thoughts on, you know, where they went afterwards, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's like full books on probably like where they're going afterwards. I mean, but yeah, that stuff's just so cool. I mean, my love of the paranormal started with like Ghostbusters, and you guys can't see it behind me because obviously this background's here, but I have a full Ghostbusters like sign, and it's like lights up and all that cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's where it started, and that's where it's just kind of continued. Watching like Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid, and then what was the other one? X-Files.
X-Files, yeah.
Was like my favorite. Just hearing anything Mulder had to say, I was just like, yeah, I believe you. But yeah, I don't know. It's always been a cool time, and just like telling these stories has been the linchpin in my like adult life of being like, no way, I can't believe these like other things exist. And then also like this year I was here, like, what was it, year 2? I remember it was like the Dogman year. Like everybody was talking about Dogman. I was like, I've literally never heard of Dogman until this year. And then and like 12 people had Dogman stories. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then yeah, I don't know. And then what was I gonna say? There was like this pathway to like getting really excited about all these cool things. But yeah, if anybody is out here and they're just like, hey, I got a weird story, and they don't feel like it fits anywhere, I would love to like talk to you, and maybe we could just vamp about like what you know, what weird stories they have out there.
Yeah.
And one story I really, really loved that I always thought was really funny was we were always like, well, we live in like a new age, and like what do you think happened? Like why is there no like good photos past like the Patterson Gimlin film? And everybody was just like, what do you mean? And I was just like, there's literally everybody, all of us have smartphones, like every single one of us. Like, what are you talking about? And like there's cameras everywhere, we have drones, everything. And then like the 6 people that are literally sitting at our table pulled out their phones, and every single one of them had flip phones. We're just like, guys, are you telling me that this is gonna be all we need to do is a generational gap, and we'll find out what this person is?
We'll buy you guys a couple of smartphones, and we'll solve this mystery pretty quick. You know?
Yeah, we got 15 minutes.
Surprised. Like every person at the table, other than you and I, had flip phones.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
like, we don't need that. And I'm like, yeah, I think you might. It's like everywhere. I don't know.
I definitely would have a greater impact on you know, solving the mystery, or at least pushing the investigations further. But yeah, I mean, just outside of Bigfoot, just in any of these, you know, cryptids or anything like that, you know, people see them, they have their stories, but you know, and I can imagine that, you know, in the moment you're so freaked out, even if you had a smartphone, you wouldn't be able to get it out. And I mean, half the time I have a hard time taking a picture. My teenagers laugh at me because I can't figure out what button to push. So I could see me doing the exact same thing, you know, even with a smartphone.
Well, I've heard like tons of stories about people being like, you know, I did take a picture, but when that picture came out, it was just like not like there's nothing there, like or like it somehow got messed up, or you know, I dropped my phone, or like you'd be surprised. Like this one guy did an experiment, because I kind of told that story on this forum, and the guy was just like, hear me out. He's like, I understand what you're saying. He's like, but I have a smartphone, and he's like, this is just me trying to take a picture of my parrot. And like he just like was like, he couldn't do it, like it was just like it's everywhere. So he's like, so imagine that thing is like trying to get away from you. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. there's just like a lot of factors you don't think about. But really, I remember Lonnie was telling us, she was just like, here's the thing, you don't want to meet them, you don't want to see them. He's like, you want to see them, you're there for it. He's like, but when you see them, it's the scariest thing ever, and you just like want to be quiet. And, yeah, it's that stuff's just it's so sweet.
Yeah, that would be, that's my biggest fear. Finally seeing one and then absolutely regretting it the second it happens. That would be the worst. Yeah. Because it's not like seeing it off in the distance, like, oh, look at that, this is docile creature, which some people say that it is, but with my luck, it would be like the most vicious beast of all time and chase me down, and that would be the end.
Well, remember, so this year, actually, I thought this was the wildest story. So when Doug hijack, he was like talking. I met him the night before, and that's kind of how all this started. This is his like podcast network and things. And he was like, "Oh, hey man," he was like, "You should come to my chat tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, I'll come to your chat, whatever." And but I didn't know him from anybody. I was like, I wouldn't have gone if I wouldn't have met him that night before, because like I was like, okay, yeah. So I showed up at his chat, and he was showing a scene from his new movie, his new documentary, and he hypnotized this guy, and I'm just like, looking, and his name came across the bottom, and I don't want to say his name because I don't want to out him or anything, but like I was just like, I know that guy, and I was like, I think that's my wife's ex-boyfriend. And she goes, no, or that I whispered, and I couldn't take a picture of it because there was like no pictures, we're showing a new movie. And I was like, okay, but I like whisper over to Brian, I go, Brian, I think that's my wife's ex-boyfriend, like before we met, like all this stuff. And then I get out of the conference and I text her immediately and go, hey, I think that your ex-boyfriend's on this video that we just watched. And she goes, there's no way, that's not possible. Then also, there's no way that you're gonna lynch me to you're gonna give me a complex with these weirdos. And I was just like, no. I was like,
she has a type. She definitely has a type.
Yeah, she has a type. It's Bigfoot believers. And then
she just didn't know it.
Yeah, and I was like, well, he was saying stuff like, Cuyahoga County and like Top Throw Dragster, or like very, local to us things. And I was like, that's very specific. Same name. And I was like, send me a picture of what he looks like now. And she sent me a picture, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, I guess it kind of looked like him, but age does a lot of stuff to us. And then I was texting her. She goes, he hasn't lived in Ohio in over 20 years. I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't him then. I was like, maybe it was another guy. And then I go up to Doug, and I was like, hey, Doug, like, where's that guy from? He goes, he's from Ohio. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, wait a minute. No, he's from North Carolina. And I was like, that's where that guy was from. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I remember I was next to the campfire that night, and I'm talking to the guy, and he goes like, he's just I'm telling him the story about everything. And he goes, and the guy was like, did you just say, his name? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I'm his cousin. And I was like, no way. Like, where did he go to high school? And he told me his high school. And I was like, that's where my wife went to high school. And I was like, yeah. So I text her like a picture of me and that guy hanging out. And she was just like, oh, like eye roll emoji. Just like, my future.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the best part of going to this stuff is you meet people, you run into people that know other people that you do, or other people that you've met at some of the other conferences, and then everybody's got great stories, and it's just so much fun. And then, I mean, it's not like everybody just sits around the whole time and talks about Bigfoot or aliens and stuff, but that's kind of what everybody's there for. But it's just a nice casual hang, and then they get a little, the people who are doing the real field research and stuff, educate the rest of us on kind of what's really going on out in the field. And
yeah. I mean, I guess that's really the kind of the point of this whole podcast is like, my favorite thing is to like learn about all these things that I don't even, like I said, I just learned about Dogman like last year. And just so many people out there that just have like this like cornucopia of knowledge that's like so exciting to learn. And I just feel like I just want to like because late at night is usually when I hear these stories. And I remember I was sitting around a campfire. We're camping at this place with like a bunch of people, and it was late, so everybody started dropping off. And it's just me and this one guy, and we're drinking, just hanging, just talking about our kids or whatever. And he goes, I was like, oh, what do you like? Like, what are your interests? Because I didn't know him. And he was like, that's kind of weird. And that's just like, well, just it's fine. Like, whatever. Unless it's kinky, let's, what is it? And he was just like, I really like UFOs. And I was just like, dude, you couldn't be stuck with the most perfect person. So we literally till like 4 a.m. stayed up and just like talked about, every single thing. And I think he even had like a story about it. I can't remember. We had a few. So the end was a little dicey, but yeah, it was such a fun time. But yeah, so yeah, I'm just like on this like slow path of like trying to learn more and more and find all these cool people. And yeah, Brian, what do you think? What is your theory on what happens when we see it and then it goes away?
I mean, without actually seeing one,
yeah.
I'm more of the believe along the lines of it's just, like an undiscovered, North American great ape kind of a thing. I think it just walks away and hides. You kind of lose track of it. It's out in the woods. I'm not really on board with the shapeshifter alien multi-dimensional thing, but
yeah,
I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind if I ever do see something like that. But
yeah,
I was just tend to look at, the simplest answer is probably probably the right one. And so I figured just, they discover species of animals all the time that they either thought were extinct or we didn't know about. And you talk to Aborigines people or, Native Americans, and to them, they're just like, oh yeah, we've been telling you guys about them for a long time. Nobody wanted to listen, So I think it's more along those lines, with the Bigfoot thing. But, like I said, you said we're new to this, and without having a real experience, it's hard to base that on. But that's my train of thought on that.
Yeah, not having the real experience yet, because we've been invited.
Yeah.
We have our friends April
and Alex,
and they were just like they were like, you gotta come. But then like I also have a thing about camping. I'm such a baby about it. I'm just like, why do we spend it's because it's not cheaper than a hotel. And we have to bring like basically our whole house there. And I'm just like, oh, I'm such a baby the whole time. I'm just like, I don't want to be here. But I thought, but usually it's just like my wife likes to play house when we go camping. So like she literally said that herself. She was just like, I like to play house. I like to figure out. I mean, you've experienced before. You literally have not set up a campsite because you're like, I'm just gonna wait till Patty gets here and then she can set it up because I'm not gonna move the. I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it twice, and no matter what I do, it'll be the wrong way.
Yeah, she'd be like, move the campfire over here, and then move the picnic table over here. So we just whatever. So I always complain about it or whatever. But the idea of being like, I'm going to the woods on purpose, and she's like, I always try to get you to go, and you never want to go.
Well, they're members of the BRFO, and they're there to do like some real camping and some real squatching, and we're much more the lines of, hey, let's have a campfire, tell some stories, and have some beers. Yeah. Some of that other stuff seems like a lot of work, It's a little scary to think about. I'm going to be out actually hiking all night long and putting in the work. I know,
but it does sound cool.
But I think one of these days we're definitely going to have to do it.
Yeah,
just to get out there and do some research of our own.
Heck yeah. My favorite story about meeting them was that I was talking to 2 other people and I literally turned around and they were just there. And then I was just like, oh, hey. And they're like, hey. And then I just talked to them for a full hour. And I was like, how did I get here? She's like, you literally turned around. And then we were best friends. And I was like, that sounds about right. We were also, it was a night that everybody was like passing around like moonshine. It was like at the thing. And I was like, this is great. This place rules.
Yeah. Then the real good stories come out then,
Yeah, at one time I was in Vegas. You're like, all right. Everyone gets their Tom Waits on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's gonna be hopefully I'll get to learn a lot of stuff that I never learned before. But I mean, my thought process is like whatever you tell me, I'll probably, if you can convince me of it, I will probably just be on board with it. I know that I've heard some people say like, oh, like they dive underwater and like do the whole thing. And we're specifically talking about Bigfoot. I have no idea what any of these things are. My theory on specifically Bigfoot is probably along the lines of what you're thinking, Brian, but I would love for it to be bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my thing is like, I never want to take the mystery away. And I remember hearing there was this podcast I was listening to about the Yeti. And the guy was basically like, he broke down the science to it being like a bear, and he explained it, and the person was just like, that's great, he was like, what you're saying is great, and it makes sense that you would think that, but the problem is that doesn't explain the other, like, even if it's 20% of it isn't explained, that 20% is still real, or
Mhm.
is still like perceived as real, or has like another explanation that isn't bare.
Right.
When somebody says they've seen something that looks like this and is described like this and sounds like
Mhm.
this, the story that like I was saying, those people that we saw in the documentary, when I talked to the cousin, he was telling me his story, and it was in my backyard. I'm not my backyard, but like, my regional backyard.
Yeah, like we
And he,
could drive there in like 20 minutes,
yeah, just talking about
We
like a,
didn't even know that there was Bigfoot supposedly
yeah,
at that place.
I was like, I thought you had to go to like Seattle or something. He's like, no, you can just go to like, the ski lodge and they just hang out. Yeah, but he was just like, there's a 10-foot tall thing across the river, and the river, like, it, like there was no water there.
Mhm.
And then he screamed so loud, and then all that stuff, and I'm just like, what is that? What does that mean? Like, I mean, that's a visceral reaction, and a lot of times, like, they're just like, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Like, they want. It's not that they want to make money off of it or like tell their story. Some of them don't say anything for years, and specifically the one guy was just like, he's like, neither of us talked about it. We would run to each other at like family outings, and we wouldn't mention it. And we weren't friends after that. And then we came together like 20 years later. So there's something to that makes you even go like, I wonder, I always have this, like, there's like a, what is it? Self-governing on your brain of like, no one's going to believe me. I should just shut this down.
Yeah.
And I think there's something valid that our brains do that. It's like fight or flight kind of. But
Well,
I
yeah,
think
I
that
mean,
stuff is,
and to have an experience that just scares the life out of you. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine wanting to talk about that.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like to see something like that and have it just literally alter your life because it was so scary.
And then trying to figure out how to like approach it with other people, be like, okay, listen,
Yeah.
I promise you we were sober. I promise you
Mm.
we weren't doing anything nefarious. But I promise you that I saw what I saw. I saw what I saw.
Yeah.
I know what
Yeah.
I saw. So there's just like a lot of that in there. And I think the technology part of it, of like technology networking when these things happen, if it comes to Bigfoot or even just Skinwalker or things like that, I think that stuff is very cool. That like it's just like what's happening there. My favorite story from Skinwalker, the actual, the original back in the day story, being that like they set up all these cameras and one of them was like chewed up, and they like go to check it. They're like, oh, well, obviously we have it on video because he took out the camera. The camera is the video is like off site. It's not in the camera, so we can look at that footage. And it literally, they have a camera on that camera, so they can literally look at it. And it literally cut to it being broken. So they're like, what the heck?
What
So
happened?
yeah, like what's that? Like what's out there, like checking the data.
Yeah, and it just adds to the weirdness of the story and makes it more intriguing to.
Yeah,
to do that.
I personally think this stuff is so cool because because life just feels so boring sometimes. You're like, okay, I wake up, I go to work, I get off work, I make dinner, and then we figure out some stuff. I play some video games at night, kiss the kids good night, do the whole thing. Not that that's boring or anything, but like they're great. But you just it can be like a routine, and to know that there's like this bigger like envelope like over top of all of us that like is bigger and cooler and crazier. It's just like, yeah, you think you know everything, but like our knowledge is like 2% versus like the 100% that is like the universe, like the things that are happening. So it's like, if we can fill the gaps in even through story, I think these are just like cool to know. Because I don't think I need to prove. It's like learning a magic trick. You're like, oh, well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think there's some value to keep researching it and finding it out, only for validity's sake, where you go like, no, this is real enough for us to document. And then you're like, oh, it's kind of like how like disclosure happened, like when the disclosure, like this story, and I've told you this before, Brian, but nobody else knows. So disclosure happened, and I'll listen to a podcast about it, but it's in my earphones, and I'm like cleaning the house and stuff, and my father-in-law's over, and he's like working on the house and stuff, and I never forget that he's like, oh, what are you listening to? And I was like, oh, and I get excited like I always do, and I was just like, oh, it's about disclosure, and they're saying UFOs are real, and I'm just like, wow, and I was like, yeah, and then I ended it, and he goes, all right, Dave. He just walked away.
it's like the eye roll, and then
yeah, just like, all right, my son-in-law's an idiot. Just
Yeah.
like, well, I am, but like also they're saying it's real. I promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just I feel like there's some validity to I just want to be in a room where I guess it is also one of those things where like you kind of want it to be your special little thing. And I think this is kind of its special little thing. It's like a band becoming big. You like don't want it to get too big. I mean, but you can also get Bigfoot shirts at Walmart now. So it's like
yeah,
the
you can't
secret's
drive down the road and people got Bigfoot bumper stickers and window
Yeah.
decals and stuff, and
which is also bullcrap, by the way. Brian,
Yeah.
you can attest to this. You're like, I've been believing this stuff my whole life, and all of a sudden it's the
Everybody-
cool
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Where were you when I was watching the $6 Million Man?
Yeah. Where were you when kids were making fun of me on the playground for talking about Bigfoot, Now everybody wants in, now it's the cool
everyone's
thing.
piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a cool time to be into cryptids because I mean there's like in Ohio alone, I think there's like 12 Bigfoot festivals. I mean, somebody tells me about a new one like every day, like you need to go to this one. And I'm just like, okay. We've only made it to the one, but we were talking about going down to I forget what it was. But it's some Hocking Hills has
Hocking
one.
Hills has one now.
Yeah,
but I mean, we go to like the oldest one, the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. That's
the OG,
that's legit, the OG, real deal.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, we went to.
Oh, your mic cut out. Oh. I can't hear you. I don't hear you. All right. Well, sorry about that, guys. Hold on. Oh, can you talk now? Nope, can't hear you. Let's see if I can fix you. Maybe just unplug your mic. Oh, you muted yourself, it said. Just hover over yourself.
Can you hear me?
You're back. You're back. Sorry about that, guys.
But yeah, besides the Ohio Bigfoot Conference down in South Fork, we went to the Monster Fest down in Canton.
Mm-hmm.
Monsters, had their first Monster Fest, and last year we made a brief appearance. My daughter's graduation party was that day, so we couldn't out too long, but we went down and saw some of our friends. But that was cool too. That was more of a bigger production. Some of these are more just like little fun stuff, but yeah, it's always fun to get. Then they bring in the speakers from out of town, all the familiar faces from TV and stuff like that. That's always fun to not only see their presentations of what they're trying to do, but then just to get to mill around and kind of hang out with them and do little meet and greets afterwards, like totally like no big thing like that. That's the most fun for me, is just to kind of have that one-on-one time and just kind of make some small talk with them. And
yeah, why do you think that now's the time that everything's kind of like blowing up? Do you think it's like a generational thing? It's like one of those things where we go, oh, like now, everybody grew up watching the X-Files, and all the people that were like excited about it when we were kids, we're all just like, well, we're adults now. We can talk about this. We don't have to talk about the things that our parents talked about.
Yeah.
I believe in this, and I'm going to talk about it with people. Like, I'm going to buy bumper stickers and get weird with it. I wonder if it's just like that one of those things where it's like we've decided now that us as adults can just be weird.
I think we just decided we got old enough that we're like, we don't care anymore if people make fun of us. We're gonna do this because we like it.
Yeah,
and
it's cool being weird.
Yeah, well, that and it's kind of ironic because we spend probably the least amount of time in the woods now as we ever have, and now this is what people want to talk about.
Yeah,
and they're into this when back with the ancient people and the American Indians, natives, Aborigines, they talked about this stuff, and the white man came through and was like, yeah, whatever, dude.
Like, no, it's scary over there.
Yeah, and then now you fast forward a few hundred years, a few thousand years, and you're like, okay, yeah, seems pretty cool. Let me get a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Like, I'm down with it now.
You know,
I said this. I've told you this, but I think it's so strange that a great tragedy happened. This is specifically when I went to the Gettysburg Museum, and I was like, "This is like the biggest massacre in American history." And now there's just a gift shop where I can buy a pen shaped like a rifle for my son, which is just the weirdest thing. It's just like these great tragedies are just like distilled down to a gift shop, and we're like, okay, that's what we're doing.
Or like every carnival now has like the Titanic inflatable ride, and it's like,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
Like a lot of people died.
Yeah, like that's not funny still, I don't think, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, maybe if there's like a door and like you really try to figure out if you could get two people in a door, like the movie.
Yeah.
Jack could have gotten that door.
I maintain that there was enough room for two people on that door for sure.
Oh, everybody, yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson said that the sky is also wrong, but then was whoever the director's name is, can't remember right now. Cameron was like, he's like, how many more million do you think would have this made if the stars were right? And he's like, nah, you got me there.
Yeah.
David Roasty, is that your name in the chat? Yeah, that we were talking some high strangeness. That's the most fun part about this whole thing. I mean, what are we here for if we're not going to talk about the whole pantheon of what it might be? Even the weirdest stuff. I don't know. I don't think I said this yet. Or maybe I just said it. I can't remember now. But I'm just spitballing anyway. That somebody was like, "What do you believe in?" And I was just like, whatever indigenous people believe in, because they seem to have like a lay of the land. Oh yeah, it's about never mind. He was talking about you getting muted. Oh, but you know, maybe it's another thing. Just we were talking about technology breaking down, and that's it. We were talking too many truths.
Yeah, I know. I probably said something I shouldn't have, and
yeah, we slowly put on our tinfoil hat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that we run a very casual line on all this. And my favorite thing is when you were like trolling the person at the bar, who believed every conspiracy theory that he's ever heard his entire life, and you were like, you're like, I'm gonna get him to say all of them,
yeah.
And you did.
Tell me more.
Yeah,
some pretty crazy ones.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm not sure I'm on board with that one, but
yeah, he's just like, they injected us with this thing, and Hillary Clinton's a robot, and this person's a hologram, and whatever. We're like,
it kind of morphed from cryptids to weird cryptid / politic stuff, and I'm like, I think that's where I draw the line there. Let's just keep it to the monsters.
Yeah, take it to the weird stuff in the woods. Yeah, sometimes you got to dilute the Kool-Aid. It's fine.
Yeah, you got to stay on track. You can't be. Maybe he was one of the people trying to get us off track. So we were about to break down some secrets or something, and
he's like, "Those guys have got the spirit.
They're starting to learn a little too much. We got to."
Those guys got smartphones. They're gonna figure it out.
They're gonna figure out all the mysteries.
Yeah, we're gonna be like, dude, you can just take a picture of them. It's like it's like the corner app on your phone. It's like, boom, bada boom. Put it on the news. Call it a day.
Yeah, really.
And then you can name it after yourself. The Dave Spencer cryptid.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, oh, it's Dave. He's in like a cage somewhere. No, I wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing too. Like how most of the names come from either other languages or older people that have came across these things, but the same essentially what we would call Bigfoot, and tons of different names. Maybe they're all a little different or whatever, but to us they're Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yetis, things like that. Yeah. It's like you get some of these kind of off the wall cryptid monster-y kind of things, and it's like, well, who named that? Where did that come from? Some of them have crazy names, some of them are kind of normal-ish, but yeah, if you see something that no one else has ever saw, I guess you get to name it,
Yeah, good call. Yeah. Some people were just like, grass man. He was a man made of grass.
That was the best you could come up with? Grass man?
Yeah. It's like, listen, I've been drinking all day. And I made it myself.
You're like, that's the best I could do.
Yeah. I thought what I thought.
Yeah. Or even like Dog Man. It looked like a dog. It looked like a
Yeah.
man.
It's
It's a dog man.
He dog man. And you're like, all right, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess not everything could be like a chupacabra or something, you know?
I mean, chupacabra not only is the most fun thing to say, but I mean, they really nailed it with that. It's like chupacabra. I literally, it's my favorite word to say. I say it just like all the time around my house. I just like chupacabra. And my wife's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just a fun word. It's just like it's like, you know, like certain curse words just like feel good to say. It's like that's, or like the word caramel, I think, is like a really cool word. And chupacabra is also another one.
Yeah.
I know you're not supposed to say it like what's his name?
Yeah, like John Travolta.
Yeah,
From Saturday Night Fever. It's a chupacabra.
I got dreams. I want to be a chupacabra. No, you're not, Danny. I'll do what I want. Go down the cub with the chupacabra.
Yeah, that's fun.
But yeah, it's I can't wait to meet more people and do all these like cool things with this. But and I'm sure that every time I get a new fun story, I mean, Doug told me this crazy story about these like dude with angel wings that he saw, but it like wasn't a guy. It was like whatever, and I was just like, "What are you talking about?" And then we basically came down to the fact that it was like a white Mothman. I mean, at least that's what I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
I don't think he did not say that, by the way. I was like, "Is it like a white Mothman?" And he was just like, "I don't know." And it's like, "Yeah, we're going with that." Because I particularly think that the Mothman is like the most interesting of them all for me personally. I mean, well, besides the Skinwalker, but I can't like get a read on that one. But like the Mothman is like kind of everything. And because what I thought was just the Mothman story, when you read into it, it's like UFOs, you know, it's some Bigfoot. It's like a little bit of everything. So it's like, what is that? Is it a warning for something, or did that just happen to happen? You know,
yeah, and I think it makes it so like intriguing to me is that it's not that old, you know. It's from what the 60s,
yeah,
you know, like the late 60s. It's not too far from us. I mean, it's a couple hours away, you know. It's right on the border with West Virginia, but yeah, we've always talked about going down there and kind of just checking that out to say we've been there. But yeah, it's not like, hey, I got to go to some weird island in the middle of the Pacific or something to see this crazy thing. It's like I can just drive over there and hear people that are still alive tell stories about seeing this thing. It's not some just folklore or something, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what always has been kind of like my thing, like talking to these people that are like seeing these crazy things. And it's like and like you mentioned earlier, you know, we go to work, we come home, we do our thing, you go to the gym, you know, soccer practice with the kids or whatever. And, you know, it's like, I never come across anything out of the ordinary, you know? And these people, is it where they live, or, you know, what are they doing, you know, that they come across this? Because not everybody's out in the woods looking for this stuff. You know, some people see this stuff, you know, driving on the road, you know?
Yeah. And I heard a story that this one person saw this, like, this was a Skinwalker story, but like there was like this is kind of a famous story, I guess, but like there was like this dog, and they're like, it was like absurdly big, and they were like petting it, and I was just like, first off, if you just like run into a random huge dog, in no world am I like, oh hey, how you doing? And then the story ended with them like shooting it. I'm like, I don't know, like I can't figure out how you see the biggest dog you've ever seen in your life. I mean, listen, I love dogs. I love them so much. You can attest to that. We just had a dog wander into our bachelor party last weekend.
We ran into a gigantic dog last weekend, and we befriended it, named it, and fed it, and hung out with
it. You know
it.
what? I take back everything I just said.
You were lying about that.
We even named him Carlos. Dude, Carlos was the best dog. He was the bestest boy. He stayed on the couch and just hung out while we all hung out in the pool and had a great time. And then, you know, he left at like 3 a.m, and he came back the next day. You know what? I'm gonna pet that dog. I don't care how big it is. In fact, the bigger the better.
Yeah. Like, Dave, I think that's a dire wolf over there. Oh no, come here, puppy.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm Jon Snow. Get it off.
You would totally pet that dog.
Oh,
meanwhile, I'd be like, just stay away. I'm allergic. I can't get near that dog.
Yeah, you're just sneezing to death, and that's the only reason why you're acting. Just like, I can't. It's a dog. So much standard.
There's so many fleas.
Yeah, maybe you're not allergic to paranormal dogs though.
That's true. Maybe they're hypoallergenic. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, the perfect dog is his entire wolf, a paranormal direwolf. Like, I didn't know. You go from no dog to the biggest dog alive.
Yeah. I'm like,
Just
it thinks it's a lap dog, and then it eats your soul.
it's in your entire basement while you're trying to work. You're like laptops on top of him. This is fine. I'm okay with this. Oh man, yeah. It's So I mean that stuff just really intrigues me. But the skinwalker stuff I think is so cool because it is like everything, and as well, and then it also includes like weird portals and stuff, like the story itself. And then you watch the show, which I've only watched like the clips that you've showed me of
that show is fantastic.
I wonder this though, like if you can go there and experience something so. Well, I guess at the same time, like there's those people that live there for 20 years. There's lots of stories, but they happen over 20 years. So it's like even if you have 10 stories, it's like that's like a story over 2 years.
Yeah, it's not like happening every day. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're gonna stay there like, no, today it's just a regular ranch. Tomorrow it's crazy pants. But like, you know, and then in another year it might be a UFO that you see. Did you see Nope, by the way?
No.
That George, dude. It's amazing. It has a good like it's very skinwalkery in like its delivery. Like at least it gave me that vibe with UFOs alone, but they have a good twist on UFOs, and it's like this. I don't want to give it away really because it's like really cool the way they handle it.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's amazing, and plus like I don't know, there's just I really like I really like him a lot, the director, which I can't think of right now, so I'm not doing it.
What was his first movie? Was the is it Get Out? Is that what it was?
Get Out, yeah. It was Get Out, and then Us, which was amazing.
That was really good, yeah.
So good. Such a weird ending. I was just So I love movies like that. I'm really a big fan of horror. Actually, I'm so excited about the reason why this show is called Monster Soup is because first off, I love soup more than anything in this world. I'm putting it out there in hopes that people will give me soup. But also, like, Doug was like, well, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, well, he's like, you want to talk about only Bigfoot? And I was like, no. I was like, I have ADHD, which if you can't tell, I was like, I can't talk about one thing. I have to talk about everything. So where we're going to go. And he was just, I was like, it can be like a monster soup of like cryptids. He was like, that's your name. And I was like, perfect. We talked about the name and then we went to the thing. So, he said, so I don't know how to pronounce your name and I super apologize. But so he said, just curious, what is the Skinwalker Ranch located? And he said, no, it's great. And he's right.
It's in Utah.
Yeah, it's in Utah. It's the middle of nowhere. And actually, so what I've heard is that Skinwalker Ranch isn't actually the scary one. It's actually a place that's like next to it that's like kind of sacred land. I think it's one of those things. It's like Salem isn't actually where they burn the witches. It's like the town next door. It's just the town next door didn't want that smoke, and they're like, "No, thank you." Yeah. They're like, "We don't want to be known for that." And then Salem's like, "Well, we'll again, a gift shop in a terrible place where very great atrocities happens. You can buy a witch hat." To commemorate this terrible time
of a woman burning. You know.
Yeah. Oh look, I got a coffee mug. That is actually a bucket list place is Salem, because that place just seems cool. I love weird old Victorian style history, or I don't know, that was colonial times, right?
Yeah.
The vibe feels Victorian because it's witches, but people are just not trusting each other. It's a great time.
Yeah, and there's so many cool places to go, in the country that aren't, big time touristy attractions where there's some of this really cool stuff.
Me and Brian were vamping, and we were talking about maybe we'll take the show on the road and we'll do monster soup around America. And we'll just hit all the fun spots. Maybe we'll go to a haunted house. There's the Sally House? I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Sally House. Yeah. They did a whole series on it, and on Astonishing Legends, this podcast to listen to, and but they have some cool recordings in there. I'd love to go there. I'd love to go to Salem. It's pronounced Johnny in Italian. I really apologize. Literally your name could be anything, and I'm so bad at names.
Well, welcome, Johnny.
Welcome, Johnny. but yeah, I would love to visit all these little places and just get little stories and just talk to people, because people in the town always have like cool stories. I mean, even passing through, like, what is it? We went to Gettysburg like a couple weeks ago. Seeing that town, I'm just like, there's so much history here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Elizabeth Gordon House.
yeah, octopus with no friends. You're right. That's his name, by the way. I'm not saying he has no friends. For people who can't see the chat.
I was.
Oh, thank you.
Years ago, I was up in New York for work, and I was in Amityville, and I drove out and happened to be a couple blocks away from where the original house was, where the murders took place, and I went and took a picture of it, and I was surprised at how nice of an area that really is. Picture it being like some dumpy haunted house kind of a thing, but it's a really beautiful area. And but when I took the picture and I went to like tag myself on Facebook and check in from like the location. And like the first thing that came up was the gates of hell, and I was like, "That's the one." But I'm like, this house is way too nice to be the gates of hell. But
that was an nice pillow.
The whole family was murdered there. I'm not sure how much of the rest of it is actually true, but
I know who knew that, like, back in the day it was such a sore spot if that happened, and now, like, what is it, 50 years later now? What is time? It's like you can make like a show about serial killer, like, houses that people like, house hunters, headhunter edition. It's like murder edition. But yeah, I mean, it's just like out of control in like, I don't know, in the most interesting way. And we've always been obsessed with these like weird macabre things, like as a nation. I actually heard this crazy story about what's it called? Who are the old robbers like back in the day? They're like infamous. Like everybody, like the girl and the guy.
Oh, Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah. There was this whole thing about when they got gunned down. They literally, it happened, and then they came back. Like all the townspeople came to look at this because they were like, Bonnie and Clyde got shot here. I mean, they were infamous at that time. So everybody was just like taking bullets from the scene. Like, can you imagine just like if like that happened today and a bunch of people just started taking evidence?
Walked into a murder scene and just it was a murder. I mean, the cops were getting them, but just walking in, taking evidence, souvenirs.
Yeah, it's just like, look, I got a strand of hair. It's just like, what? Like, there's literally people out there who have that stuff, like in like it's probably just in a shelf somewhere. They're like, what's this that granddad has? Just an old shell casing, and they probably threw it away. Little do they know. Their grandpa was a real freak. I don't know. I mean, at the same time, if I was born back then, I'd be probably the worst offender. Like, look, I grabbed an entire panel from the side of their car.
Look at all the holes.
This is crazy. I display it over my like fireplace, and my wife would be like, "Could you take the murder door down?" No, this is part of history. I won't know that at the time, but I'll be like, it's part of history.
Like, I guess I'll just put it in my office.
Yeah, with everything else. There's my murder door. There's my Ghostbusters sign. There's my haunted relic. My black mirror.
That's so funny.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's but yeah, just going out there, and I think that I love running into people who like kind of take you over to the side, and it'll be like, oh, because they'll like kind of see you have like a vibe where you're like excited. I have like a palpable excitement, and I can't control it. So when I get to these things, I was like, what? And they're like, come over here. And they're like, check this out. Oh, are you serious? It's in Minxie said that. Is it Minxie? Yeah, said that the Bonnie and Clyde.
It's in Whiskey Pete's Hotel.
It's in Nevada. Wait, how close is that to Vegas? We can make that a stop.
It can't be that far.
I'll Google that later because that sounds awesome. You're like, Patty, do you want? She'll be like, I'm gonna go do something else. I'm gonna go look at the Bonnie and Clyde car because
every time we go to Vegas, I'm always threatening to drive up to Area 51. And,
I know. Yeah.
And my wife's just like, I'll be at the pool.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm like, no, they got all the secrets in there. I think the car was actually on tour at some point. I remember like hearing about it. I don't know. it's fine. But I think it'd be so cool to see that kind of stuff. But I there's like specifically I want to go to Salem, so maybe we'll just make that an episode. You know, Dave and Brian go to Salem, and then we just accost people in the streets. What do you know about witches?
Are you a witch? What are you doing?
Actually, that would be great. Just like walk around and be like, burn her. Just have a real money come in the square. Yeah. Does she weigh more than a duck?
Yeah, that would be so funny. I'm sure we wouldn't last very long there. You know, they would.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably like a daily occurrence there. They're like, freaking tourist every day. The Monty Python thing shows up.
Yeah.
You think you're being original? It's just like every single other person is going.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
Like, just go to the coffee shop for God's sake.
Go buy your witch keychain and leave us alone.
She turned me into a Oh, we're gonna have to go to Massachusetts. We got our first trip.
Yeah.
Bridgewater Triangle.
Bridgewater Triangle.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, we're gonna put that
that's
on
the
the
other
list.
thing. It's like, so if you look at the cryptid, like what is it, map? Like 99% of them are like all in Ohio. So we're just leaving it on the table here. We could literally probably like go like 20 feet. Like we were saying, there's like a Bigfoot in our backyard that we didn't even know about. Like there's probably like we can go to like Amherst, Ohio, which is like 20 minutes from us. And there's like, no, like this is the home of like the Amherst, like what is it? Octopus man. They'd be like, oh man, I don't even know that. I'd be like, it's got tentacles for teeth. Like, this place rules. But we didn't know that because we were just always at the bar.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, we were at the bar talking about cryptids and cool stuff instead of actually going out and looking for something.
Oh man. Oh wait, what's that? Oh, it'll be a good time. I think that we'll make some stuff happen. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up here. This has been a great chat. We really felt our flow at the end there, so I appreciate you guys being part of like the first episode. I'd love for you guys to like check us out every week. Hopefully, we'll get some more people coming on. Let me know if you have a weird story. I'd love to hear from you. I'll have you on. We'll just me and Brian will just bull crap about weird stuff.
Yeah, so, the weirder the better.
The weirder the better is absolutely true. And we're only gonna yes and you. Like that's all we're only here to yes and you. And so we will believe you until you say weird stuff like I saw it was as big as a truck. Like we're like, oh, the truck's pretty big. I don't know. Yeah. Or no, it's a bus. That's what it was. Yeah. So it's inside story, joke, whatever. Oh, Octopus with No Friends said he's got some weird stories. Well, listen, you know the way to my heart. It's soup and weird stories. and also
we're rolling into soup season, so
soup season. Me and your wife. Your wife comes over. We do like a soup thing where like everybody brings soup and we just eat it and we drink cocktails and it's amazing and it's like the best feeling of fall where you just I made like a clam chowder. It was the best clam chowder I ever made in my life. Or ever had in my life. Not even made. Best clam chowder I ever had in my life. And I even had to check out with my wife. I was like, is this the best clam chowder you've ever had? Because it's the best I had. She's like, this is the best clam chowder. And it's the best. What are we even doing here? Right now, it's still 80 degrees in Ohio. I don't know what's happening. It's September. I'm used to it being cold. And every day, it's just hot. And I'm sweating.
I just want some soup.
Oh, Poncho, man, email me. He's saying he's got some weird stories too. Weirdos unite. Yeah. It says weirdos untie, but I'm assuming you mean yes. We are also coming untied. It's a hot mess out here.
That could be our theme. Weirdos untie.
Yeah, and we'll just do like a whole Stitch thing.
It's an inside joke. You had to be here on the first episode to know what we're talking about.
Yeah, be like, oh, you weren't there? And we have like merch just everywhere. It says like weirdos untie.
Weirdos wouldn't unite. That's true. Very true.
No, he says weirdos wouldn't untie. So I think maybe because we're in our straitjackets and we're just like it cannot. The arms are already buckled up.
It's too much. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this has been great. I really appreciate you guys. Come back every week. We'll just be doing this. It's Friday night. Well, I don't know if I should say what day it is because this is universal. Somebody could be listening to us on the way to work on Monday. I don't know what you're doing, but this is what we're doing. Okay, so really do appreciate you and all the things that you do out there. So stay weird. Oh wait, I'm gonna end this with actually I have a couple sign-offs that I made. They're so stupid. So Monster Soup. Keep the soup hot and your cryptid's hotter. Or it's super scary. Cuddle up with a bowl of that full cuddle up with a bowl full of spooky. And also take a bowl of hot creamy monster soup down your throat. That was a little aggressive.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah. It just gets worse. It's like slurp that creepy stuff down.
We should probably stop there.
Yeah, the last one's just slurp, slurp. That's all we got.
Maybe we'll have a poll or something to see.
Yeah, they'll be like, no, if you give people a poll, it's always the worst one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a soupy McSoup face or something.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna be. All right, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
See ya.